Hi, my name is Louie, and today I've got...
Damon with Premier RV.
We're running out of inventory, so we got to do a customer's coach that we sold about 8 months ago.
We're scavenging inventory and service now to do videos.
We got to get our videos out there, so,
Yeah.
hit the subscribe button, right?
Keep the fans happy.
So this is a 2009 Country Coach Affinity, probably the most expensive Affinity ever built.
Well, without question, the most expensive, probably the nicest.
And probably the best condition coach. I've never
condition.
seen a coach with this type of condition after, 24 years?
Yeah. Lou and Catherine, original owners, I sold it to them from Southern Oregon, garaged. He kept it perfect. I mean, great people, did everything right, and then some. So, yeah, it's a beautiful coach. New owner now, it's the second owner.
Yeah, 2 owners.
Yep.
So, pretty rare coach. Affinities, only about 15 of these were ever made with bath and a half floor plan. So, very sought after floor plan here.
Definitely. And we should probably state that we're doing the service coach. It's not for sale. We're just, we want to do a unique video and cover some of the unique features on it.
Well, we get a lot of questions on people asking between the Magnas and Affinities and even the Allures and Intrigues, why is an Affinity so much more money? We're going to get into the paint and the process. We got Steve and Dennis that are going to give a little input on it. Lots of experience with both of those guys.
Yeah, I was still in high school, I think, when they were working at Country Coach. So.
Yeah, so we're excited to talk about the paint, and then maybe a little bit later we'll get Gary out here and talk a little bit more about the affinities and the customization of the product.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, we'll get them done. All right, so we'll get the painters out here in a second.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Oh, we're outside. We got Steve and Dennis. I know both of you are longtime Country Coach employees.
I've been on the property since 1987.
Wow.
Man.
Were you
Same.
born yet, Damon?
I was in high school, though, junior.
Oh.
Yeah.
So was that 18, 19 that you started?
Oh, no.
Oh, we don't want to give out the age.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. Dennis?
I started at Country Coach in 1998.
Wow. Awesome. So what we wanted to talk about is this dramatic paint job on this 2008 Affinity.
9.
Oh, 9, sorry.
That's another edit.
Very custom coach. But maybe you guys could talk about the paint process, because I think it's very unique on what Country Coach does. And, like the Sickens product and stuff like that.
Yeah, basically it goes through a prep process where the whole coach is scuffed, sanded, degreased. And what you see right here in the pinstripe color, all these
That small little line right there.
small little lines right here, the whole coach is painted that first.
Wow.
Well, actually sealed, there's a full process. It's sealed and then base coated on top of that. Once that's done, this fine gentleman right here, Dennis, who's our awesome layout guy, I'd put him up against anybody, even the guy on Bitchin' Rides. He's good.
Wow. So when you say the layout, because I know that's pretty dramatic, he's not really going off a template or anything like that. He's freehanding this, right?
We use no templates. We
have a picture.
Use this as a guideline. This is a layout guideline for all the painters. And we do it by hand. There's no templates, there's nothing.
I always saw you guys out there with the blue tape and doing the lines and all that stuff. I mean, tell me.
That's what all this gold is actually the 3M fine line tape. And we use that as a guideline to kind of get the stripes where they need to be. Of course, we adjust them the best we can to miss the hard stuff. But yeah, just lay it all out by hand, make it look like the picture, and
So is it safe to say no two sides are alike? I mean, how do you get this side exactly like the other side? If you're not going off a template, you got to be pretty...
Our goal was to have both sides look alike.
Yeah,
The only things that would play out different would be window configurations,
yeah.
stuff like that. But other than that, our goal was, no matter what anybody else said, was to have it match on both sides.
So when you shoot that little pinstripe color, is that 4 shots of that color, or what's the process?
When this coach was completed, we actually put 3 coats of pinstripe color, and the last coat, well, it's 3 coats and a drop coat, depending on coverage. The last coat is what we would call an orientation coat. It evens out all the metallics so everything looks uniform across the whole coach.
Maybe get into, I see a lot of fades here and how dramatic that is and the complexity for a painter to do these types of colors where they're changing, 4 or 5 times it looks like?
Yeah, it's for the painters, it wasn't really difficult because they were good at it. It was the time it took to do it. Because you could paint this stripe right here in 10 minutes. Now when you start doing blends, that stripe can now take you 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
So the complexity and the time was quite tough for, especially to me, to like a production line roll.
So, I mean, how long would this paint job in the factory take from an hour standpoint and man hours?
Well, you got to remember, we had a day shift
Yep.
and we had a night shift.
Yep.
So basically, the custom affinities may have taken a little bit longer, but it would be 2 days and 2 nights.
What was written on paper from prep to buff to start finish was 500 hours. I would say in the booth was around 200.
Wow.
But that's 4 guys in there, days and nights.
One thing I've always appreciated with Country Coaches versus the other manufacturers' paint is using the Sickens paint. You see a lot of depth to it. You see a lot of metallics. Can you explain anything like that? The process?
The Axel Noble products has got a really good paint. Their clear is really good. Just makes everything stand out. Nowadays you can get candy colors, and spraying candy is very difficult, but you can get a color that looks just like a candy and spray it normal. And that's what brings out the vibrance of it.
And Sickens is the highest line of Axo Nobel, and the more expensive the product, the better it's going to look in the long run.
Anything else you want to?
Well, I was just curious, like the logos. You know, everybody's got a decal or an emblem, but it was actually painted. How did you guys do that so small? Like custom, it's tiny.
Basically, once this stripe was still in base coat, and this was pretty much the last thing we did. We would put on a template logo type thing.
Okay.
Go ahead and mask it off. Shoot. A color was designated for each one, and this happened to be the color. I don't know if it's the gold or the pinstripe, but and then you just mask it off, shoot it, pull it back, and it's part of the clear process now.
And so obviously this coach has 4 slides. So the next step is, did you paint the slides after the whole coach was painted?
The slides were after the fact, not after the fact to clear, but we based everything. Sometimes we did clear and then, like back to them. But basically it was base the coach. When that was all done, pull rooms out, do your layout, and then go ahead and do the same process on the end walls that you did on the coach itself.
And after clearing the coach, we'd run the rooms out and then clear the end walls.
So we're not going to hold you guys to this, but if someone came in and said, hey, I want this type of custom paint job on my coach, God, not that we would do it, but...
Nowadays, Dennis and I have talked about this before many times. The material cost has gone up so much.
Yeah.
We're thinking something like this would probably be $13,000 to $15,000 just in materials.
Yeah.
Then if you think of the hours that he just said, 500 hours, labor-wise, anywhere from $60,000 to $75,000.
Yeah. Ouch.
Yeah.
So.
Careful driving.
Yeah. Make sure you don't hit anything out there.
Good insurance.
Although if you do, these guys can repair it. So
I was going to say, let them go ahead and damage them. We can fix them.
No, we appreciate you guys coming out and giving us a little
No, it was a pleasure.
information on these dramatic paint jobs.
Very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Louie.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, well, we made it inside, Damon, and guess who we saw out in the parking lot?
I can't believe it. You got him in here.
We dragged Gary.
They suckered me into this thing. Dang it.
Gary started a Country Coach.
1990.
Wow, 1990.
That makes me really old.
You ran the engineering department for many years, and
Yeah, I was in engineering for probably the first 15 years, and then the past 5 years was engineering operations.
The other thing Gary ran was he ran away from me at shows.
yeah,
You and every other salesperson that wanted something
yeah.
crazy.
He was smart. He saw a salesman coming and walked the other way.
That's right.
All of a sudden, he had a phone call.
Quick disclosure: we all took our shoes off,
Yep.
right? So.
Yeah.
Again, this is a customer's coach. He's doing some service. He bought the coach from us about 8 months ago, and he was nice enough to let us do a video on this because it's just a rare coach. It's original, which we're going to talk about a little bit, but I wanted to bring Gary in and ask him a couple questions on the process of the Affinity versus a lot of the other models that Country Coach built.
Yeah, so, a little bit just about the coach. The customer, he bought one from us 5 years ago, and he goes, Gary, if you ever get a super nice bath and a half, put me first on the list. This came in, and it is just an immaculate condition of the guy that previously owned this, and you can just see it throughout the motorhome. You probably saw it earlier in the paint job. Everything is original. I mean, nothing's been done to the motorhome. This is what it was built in, is it 2009?
2009?
Yeah, so it was built in 2008. So anyways, it's just a very cool thing of how country coaches keep up in the years if you're willing to keep them up, if you're willing to treat them right and all that type of stuff.
One of the last country coaches ever built.
Was this one of the last ones?
So a lot of people are always asking, oh, you don't want to stay away from... I have a different theory on that.
I do too. So my
Yeah.
theory is, trust me, I ran operations there. I was on the production floor on a daily basis. The coaches we didn't put in different materials. We didn't do all this different stuff that everybody thinks is out there on the internet. We may have had a problem buying a part on time, so it went in a different station, which made us not as efficient in manufacturing. But the good thing is that instead of having 2,700 employees in manufacturing, I had 200. Well, the 200 were the best 200 there ever was. So the coaches that were built in 08, 09, 010, in my opinion, are some of the better coaches because of the people who did it, because they worked at the facility for probably 10, 20, 30 years, some of them.
No, I agree with that 100%.
But a little bit about the Affinity, why it makes it so different than the other Country Coach products, was we allowed the customer to fully customize this motorhome. It was pretty much a blank piece of paper for them, which, as being in engineering operations, I hated it because it just completely messed up my whole production line. So they could do a custom paint job, which I think you guys have already done a video on that. Usually I'm going to say an extra week in paint, if not longer, to do the customization of paint. So like I said, in a production line process, that makes it really difficult to manage. And then on the inside, all new materials, whatever they want to spec out. That's why you see some Affinities that you go, didn't really like their taste. And you see other ones that's a beautiful motorhome, as this one is. Very, very well done. But just to explain a little bit about the man-hour difference from an Affinity to a Magna. So a Magna on the production line, we would average about 4,200 man-hours. And I know you're going to ask, well, how does that guy remember that? Because I lived it. I mean, everything was about man-hours, trying to get your man-hours down and make more profit at the company. In Affinity, we average 6,100 man-hours. That's just how much more detail, work, customization was in an Affinity versus a Magna. Not so much on the chassis side. Chassis are pretty much identical, but and the box construction, as I always call it, floors, sidewalls, roofs, were very similar, but paint, interiors, cabinetry, all that kind of stuff was just windows. I mean, in this case, it has a flush mounted window. You got to put stainless on the outside of this. It does have a different generator rollout, which is the same. We just got to make sure we put the right one on the motorhome in manufacturing days. So all of those things really add up. Affinity's always had every option. So, well, I should put, there was an option on a Magna, standard on the Affinity. Mm-hmm. They pretty much always had, if it was their patina was available. Patina itself in the cabinet shop was another 400 man-hours of labor just to do the patina work in the cabinet shop.
And that's like this antiquing of the wood, basically?
Yeah, so what the process was is that you'd build the cabinet, you would do one layer of can't think of the name of it. What's the name of it?
Lacquer?
Lacquer. Thank you, Louie. One layer of lacquer. Then you would patina it wipe all the patina off so it would stay here and just darken the wood a little bit. Another layer of lacquer, patina it again, and then 2 more layers of lacquer.
Hey.
That's another thing. The cabin shop we were only allowed to do 1 patina coach a week because of the process. No different, we're only allowed to do 1 affinity a week. We just couldn't handle it in manufacturing, getting it through the line with the other coaches based upon the extra man hours.
And like you were saying, affinities are very limited production. 1 out of 4 coaches
one
built
out
in
of every
Plantain.
4, maybe 1 out of every 8. I mean, sometimes we wouldn't. It was only 2 a month instead of maybe 3 or 4 a month.
Yeah, and it was about 60 working days in Plantain, the Magna and Affinity plant.
Right.
But yeah, it was 1 and then 3 Magnas basically.
Yeah, what we would do in manufacturing is actually have a group of people that follow the affinity in each assembly line.
Mm-hmm.
So as it rolled, that way I could keep the assembly line the same, but all those people followed it to do the extra work needed for that. So you get and sometimes that worked, sometimes it didn't.
So what if you ran into a customer that said, I really like that affinity over there, I want you to build me one just like it because that one's sold?
No. You could not do
One of a
that.
kind.
It's one of a kind. That's one thing that you always was great about an affinity. From an exterior or an interior standpoint, you'll never see 2 the same. And that was a no. Even though I'm sure you two got that quite a bit, you guys was always a no.
Yeah, we did some variances quite a bit.
Right.
But
I would love it if you do 2 things the same. It was actually more efficient for me. But
you could have been 2 a week
These
instead
damn
of
people made it very difficult for me. I'll just leave it at that.
some really cool things in 09 on the Magnas and Affinities too with the ceiling treatment.
Yeah, so we ended up redoing the ceiling treatment to give more headroom. I actually think it's a little bit more efficient on the AC side when we did testing on here. Our flows were better and our return rate was better, so a little bit better for a roof air. Not that it was that big of a deal, but it was better. So we put the roof up instead of down with the normal ceiling consoles. You got to remember, the whole process of this wasn't really for a looks thing. It was to quiet the ACs down. Everybody thinks, oh, they did it for looks. It is beautiful, but you truly did it because trying to quiet the dB level of the ACs so when you're sitting in your coach, they weren't so loud.
I remember seeing this on the buses maybe in 08 on our Prevost division.
We did.
So they probably took that idea from that and
Yep.
put it into the
Yeah, we
Affinity.
ended up in the buses carving out the ceiling, putting it up for a little different design. The buses did have a little bit shorter of a ceiling sometimes.
That's good
So,
point.
you're not going to change your Prevost ceiling in that sense. Where these ones we raised the roof in 05. But yeah, anywhere from that to simple things as fixtures. You know, a Magna fixture, which I think is a little crazy, probably $300 or $400. Affinity fixture, $700. I'll just give you an example. The interior design budget. Interior design budget for Magna was about, I'm going to say, $21,000 if my memory is right. Interior design budget for an Affinity was $40. Like fabrics. If it wasn't $400 a square yard, she weren't going to use it. I mean, that's just how Debbie thought back then.
And you didn't, like a Magna, you would have rolls of the fabric because you're,
Yeah.
it's
so
a
it's
standard
very,
material.
very customization on fabrics. I mean, all these little things add up to why the Affinity is so much different than the Magna, even though it's the same floor plan.
I just think the Magnas and Affinities fit and finish. A lot of people don't realize when you finish off a window box, the valance and the sills right here, and then all this other material, and then you don't see the screws from the window frame on the inside. A lot of our competitors, you would just see, they wouldn't have a sill here, and you would see all the screws around the frame of the windows and stuff.
Yeah.
You kind of, I don't want to pick on brands, but those coaches were built probably in 20 days versus this being a 60-day.
Well, there's so many things you could talk about a Country Coach versus any other brand. How cabinets were made. Any other brand, this cabinet wouldn't butt up to there because you have to be dead nuts from this spot to that spot with dead nuts from this window box to here. So this cabinet would be a radius cabinet and it'd have a gap there this big to allow for their manufacturing differences. You wouldn't, I guarantee you, you wouldn't have a window box that's handmade in our cabinet shop. That's not a bought-in piece of material. That's a handmade hard piece of wood. I don't even think the Prevost would do that back in those days.
Actually, you're bringing up a good point because Country Coach was one of the few manufacturers where they were a complete manufacturer. They weren't an assembler, so they weren't buying all these components and just putting them together. they were making it. We had how many people in
Well,
cabinet shop?
Cabinet shop
500?
had 290 people in the cabinet shop. The paint department had over 300 painters.
Yeah.
So we did everything in-house.
Wiring harnesses,
wiring
chassis.
harnesses. I had 90 ladies building wire harnesses, actually right outside the door here in this building. You didn't go. I would rather talk to Damon than talk to those 90 ladies in that particular room. I'll just leave it at that. That's all.
There goes our views. The comments are going to be great now. Oh boy.
They were hard.
His name's
to work
Gary,
with.
by the way. No.
But yeah, I mean, Country Coach, we did everything in house. That way you could control it. You could
exactly.
get what you wanted when you wanted it. It may not have been the cheapest way of doing something, but it was the best way of doing something.
Even the curve and the radius of the cabinets here, all these small things, that takes a lot of time to sand that down.
If you look at a country, how cabinets are stacked together, here's another great example. Dash overhead. Very complicated. All these different angles going on. Most people are going to have a split in this cabinet. This is going to be a cabinet, and this is going to be a cabinet. Not a country. Those cabinets are built together, all as one, put in the motorhome, and it has to be dead nuts. This slide room is going to be where it's at. So our variances were very tight compared to any other manufacturer. It's just how we did things. We didn't want to see this gap. We didn't want to see that. We didn't even do that in any of our product lines. We just didn't do it.
And we're looking at a 15-year-old motorhome, and all of this can be applied against 24 brand new motorhomes that are still.
Yeah, you don't see. I mean, you just don't see things built.
No,
Like this, and you still don't see them built.
and-
It's like I said, it's built more like a Prevost would be built than a motorhome would be built.
Yeah.
And as far as manufacturing practices, procedures, all of those type of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, anything else you could add? I mean, we could go on and on and on, but
I think the takeaway is Gary also does sales. So there's a fair amount of inventory that never hits the website. We have waiting lists, and for unique coaches like this, and
I sold this coach.
Yeah, I'm competing against these two. So if there is something that you're looking for, the takeaway is get a hold of us. Let us know this is what I'm looking for. We get you on a list, and then we do give you the first shout when something comes in before we do a video. Or like this coach never had a video done, wasn't even on our website. Just came in, went right back out.
yeah, that happens quite a bit.
It does.
Yeah.
There's
So-
a large percentage of our sales.
We all have a list of people looking for a specific coach,
Exactly
and I
right.
know Scott was definitely interested in a bath and a half.
You waited 3 years for this motorhome to come along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, we appreciate you watching the videos. Hit the subscribe button.
It's free. Thank you.
And thanks to Gary for
Yeah.
showing up today.
Yeah.
This is
Wow.
awesome.
Yeah.
You guys, special treat by me.
Actually, we're celebrating our 15th year at Premier RV.
We just celebrated it.
Well, we haven't celebrated it yet, but
Well,
we need to.
I mean, the date passed, Lou, but we're too busy working, selling coaches to celebrate it at the moment.
One day, maybe November, December, we'll celebrate.
That's
All
right.
right.
All right.
Have
Thank
a
you.
good day, guys.
Thanks.